because I have a mind hack for you. It is a way to cope with family and friends who are still true believers in their religion. A lot of times when we leave a religion, especially if we've been so enmeshed in it and it's been so densely woven into our psyche, that when we leave, we really have a lot of conflict with family and friends who are still in the religion. And so I wanted to share a very important mind hack. It's not just a mind hack. It's a skill that if you don't learn it, you're really going to be stagnant in your ability to move on. And so if you're coming out of a high demand religion right now, this is going to be very powerful for you. And I'm excited to go through it. I wrote my notes, and so I'm going to use my notes. Hope you don't mind. But many times we live in a community where they have provided all of our needs and we have relevance in that community and we are so involved in that community. And then when we lose our faith and we just kind of go down the rabbit hole and we start to discover things about our faith and our religion that are true, and we have to kind of readjust, and sometimes your whole worldview collapses. And that alone is a lot of trauma. But after that, we try to reestablish and rebuild our life. But many of those people are still in our lives. Many of those people are our children. Many of those people are our parents. Some of those people are our spouse. And so it can be really challenging to be able to continue communicating with them. So one of the things, I was doing a coaching call the other night, and one of the things that came to me that was really helpful that we did, that was to identify how when you left the religion, you suddenly became aware of the dysfunction in your family, like you couldn't see it before. And so I had them list some of the things that they didn't recognize that they were experiencing in their family relationships and in their family dynamics. And some of those things were intense shame, didn't realize that their parents operated and motivated through a sense of shame. Also, that their family was very exclusive, excluded people, very judgmental. Maybe you recognize that your family was enmeshed. They clearly don't have any boundaries. There was manipulation going on that you couldn't see until you stepped outside of that paradigm. There was, I don't know, there's just a feeling of irrelevance within your community, but there's codependency going on. We start to recognize patterns of narcissism, both overt and covert narcissism. And we couldn't see it until we stepped out inside of that paradigm. And now it's kind of obvious to us. And we're like, I can't believe I didn't see this before. And so many of us didn't discover the depth of the dysfunction and how underdeveloped we were in the world and in our family until we went through this trauma of transition. And in these traumas, our whole goal is to develop and grow and be able to expand because of the hardships that we have in our life. And so many of these dysfunctions start to emerge, and you see them and you're like, I've always been under this toxic influence and I had no idea. And we didn't know those things were there until we left. So I encourage you, this is a key paramount part of understanding this, is to not discount the growth that you have earned by daring to become the sovereign authority of your life and to challenge your belief system. We take it for granted because it's something that happened to us, and while we're in the middle of it, we can't see our own growth and our own development and the strength that we're gaining. And so we kind of discount it. And there's a lot of growth that happens when you go through a faith crisis, because you start to go inward instead of being codependent on your external life and your tribal experience. So by risking, listen to this, by risking the possibility of hurting other people, disappointing other people, and even losing valuable relationships in order to stop betraying yourself, you have up-leveled and upgraded yourself in a way that you maybe won't be able to comprehend until later on down the road, but don't discount it. You have earned expanded awareness, and with expanded awareness comes more responsibility. So expanded awareness, what I'm talking about that is when we start to see things we never saw before. And when we live in a closed belief system, like a high demand religion, there's many things that we can't see, and we don't know that we can see them. So that expanded awareness is limited to those who are under the influence of that closed belief system. And just because we've gained, this new expanded awareness doesn't necessarily mean that we can stop the suffering and the stunt of growth that it played out in our life until we have upgraded our coping skills. And so that's what I want to talk to you about today, is that skill. We haven't necessarily gained the ability to hold multiple perspectives. And I invite you to start to understand how you're holding multiple perspectives by remembering how you were and who you were under the other paradigm, and how you are and who you are in the new paradigm. That is the capacity of your mind to hold multiple perspectives. And not everybody has that capacity, and we take it for granted. And so how do we develop more of that to hold 3, 4, 5, 10 different perspectives? The more perspectives we can hold, the more ability that we have to cope in life. The more responsibility we have to hold a space for grace for all those who don't think like we do. And so it's not just about waking up. That's not enough to wake up. We also have to take the responsibility to grow up and to start onboarding some of these new mature skills. And sometimes, nobody's told us that we have to gain these skills, so it's no fault of our own. It's just, it's never been brought to our attention. And so we kind of muddle through the darkness, kind of trying to find our way through it, wondering what's wrong. And when we learn the skill, we go, oh, we can't expect ourselves to do and be somebody that we don't know how to do and be. It's just unbelievable. We can't develop skills that we can't see or never been introduced to us. So when you start to develop this ability to hold multiple perspectives, you gain this more conceptual understanding. And you don't download these higher level thinking skills until you're introduced to them. But when your mind understands what I'm explaining to you, you can't undo this expansion. Now that you understand it, you'll be able to observe it in your life, because you're becoming the observer of your mind. But you will need to practice it. It is something that life is going to give you all opportunities to practice it. But until then, this annoyance that we have with our true believing family members and friends is going to continue to pester us. And it will continue to do what's called paradigm butting. We just kind of butt heads, and we can see a certain way, it's a better way, we want to impose it on everybody. But until we gain the ability to hold multiple perspectives and honor those multiple perspectives, then we'll continue in that paradigm butting. So in this particular situation that you are with your family, you must recall how invisible the dysfunction was for you in the beginning. You couldn't see the abuse, you couldn't see the pain, you couldn't see the lack of development when you were in that paradigm. You had no idea that it was going on, or that you were even imposing it on other people. So if someone told you, you know what, you're being abusive right now, and you lack some skills, you are underdeveloped. I don't know about you, but if somebody told me that when I was in my high religious belief system, I would have come unhinged. I would have been defensive. I would have been angry. I would have, fought that tooth and nail, because I didn't think I was underdeveloped. I didn't think I was being abusive or insensitive, because that's not who I want to be at my core. I just couldn't see how offensive it was to other people who didn't think within my worldview. So our frustration becomes, because what is now so obvious to us is still invisible to them. And the further away that you get, and you leave, and you're 3, 4, 5 years out, and you hear people who are in that paradigm talk, it's just like burning to your ears. Unless you can gain this skill to hold their perspective and say, that's how they think, that's how they believe, there's nothing wrong with it, that's just how it is. And you stop arguing with what is, and trade it in for what it is, trade that desire to argue for what is for what you think it should be. I think I have that switched around. Trade in what you think things should be for what is. That's what I was trying to say. So basically, this time in your life, you're being asked to hold both perspectives, the old way of thinking and the way that you can now see things. And in this transcendent space, it becomes almost effortless to offer grace. Grace is a higher order of operating for people with expanded consciousness. When we think that we are so woke and we're so conscious and we can't offer grace, we are not that awake and we are not that enlightened until we can hold that space. And in this transcendent space, you can see that the continuation of growth, of your growth, rests in your hands. And you cannot expect someone else to behave in a way that honors your perspective when they cannot see what you can see. That's not fair. And so all that responsibility comes onto you. But with that responsibility, you have to think, well, I don't want all that responsibility. I want them to grow up. I want them to see what I see. In that place, you're just going to argue with that. You're going to fight with that. You're going to continue to have stress and strain in your relationships. You're growing up now. You're expanding now. And let's talk a little bit about this idea of grace a little bit more. There's a lot of words for it in the dictionary, but the ones that I like that we're talking about now is mercy. It's granting someone clemency or pardoning them for their behavior, and it's easier to do and to offer that grace when you understand what's going on and when you no longer expect them to behave in a way that they've never seen or never understood, and that you can hold those two perspectives. This doesn't mean that you forego establishing boundaries. You need to have boundaries in your family to let them know what you're going to put up with and what you're not going to put up with. But when you have developed that grace and you're stepping into that grace, now you're able to make those boundaries. You're downloading the wisdom to make those boundaries in a way that's not going to offend them, that's not going to hurt them, that honors both parties. And you're able to develop or to establish those boundaries in a way that's more effective, that honors their old paradigm that you used to be in. And it's going to be more effective. And you do it in a way that doesn't feel threatening. And so your family members aren't putting up all the defenses. But until you come from that space of grace, it's likely you're going to come from a place of emotion and defense. And a lot of times we try to establish boundaries there, and it's not as effective as we wanted it to be. So another higher order thinking is empathy. The ability, and we all have this ability, but many of us haven't tapped into it. Some of us are born with it more naturally than others. Some of us, we wonder if we'll ever tap into it. And that's this idea of empathy. Empathy is a higher order of operating in the world. It's a higher skill. And the ability to be in someone else's shoes and feel the world and see the world as they see it, as well as you can. It's the ability to experience how other people are experiencing you. And that takes a lot of practice. When you can step into other people's shoes and understand how you make them feel, you're less likely to be insulting, you're less likely to be insensitive, you're more likely to tap in and connect with them. And so this really upgrades your ability to connect as well. So empathy and grace, those are the two skills that you are expanding. And another thing I want to remember is don't discount the impact that your expansion has made on you by expecting those who haven't been through that fire to make the changes that they can't see. You can't see how much you've grown. You can feel it though by how challenging things come before you start developing these abilities to hold multiple perspectives. So as you practice holding two perspectives, your post-LDS or your post-Jehovah's Witness paradigm and your when I was in the religious paradigm, you're able to operate in both worlds, and you can toggle in between both worlds, but it also becomes your responsibility to be the mature one in that situation. As you begin to understand two worlds, then you gain the capacity to see 3 worlds and 4 worlds and 5 worlds. And I will have to say that people who gain that ability to maintain multiple perspectives are going to make a tremendous impact in the world. And we are going to be able to, when we gain those skills, we're not going to see ridiculous debates like we saw this week. We're not going to see all the arguing and fighting on Facebook and on our social media. We'll be able to be more honorable and respectful to each other. And again, this is my opinion, but you really aren't that woke and enlightened if you can't maintain empathy and grace and the ability to hold multiple perspectives. So I hope this was helpful for you, because your relationship with your family and friends is important, and it doesn't have to completely be lost unless it becomes too toxic and you can't move forward and it's just not healthy. Then you do need to honor yourself and move on. It is my pleasure and my joy to help people who are going through transition. And so if you are looking for a coach, or if you want to read a book, or if you want to join a Facebook group, or if you want to do an online course, I have many opportunities for you to join in and get the tools that you're looking for, so that you can wake up and grow up and clean up and show up in your life in a whole new way, and to move forward and progress. And so I hope that was thankful or helpful for you. Take care. Bye.